Hi, I'm Amy Finley, and this is Across the Fence. Wherever you are, I'm sure you're starting to note the signs of fall. It's brisk and cool at night. Pumpkins are starting to make an appearance. Though for me, I've got to say, that feels a little premature. I hold out for pumpkins until October. There's even some color change in the leaves. And speaking of color change, Mark LaBarr is with us today for Bird Notes. And Mark, we're talking about plumage, right?
We are indeed. Always great to be here. It's an exciting and challenging time for folks in the birding community this time of year because of molt and plumage.
Because of molt and plumage. Okay, so it sounds to me like what you're saying is I'm going to struggle here today. So let me start with an elementary question. What is molt?
So
and do all birds do it?
All birds do molt.
Okay.
And molt is basically, feathers are a really important part of birds, right?
Yes.
They provide not only plumage colorations, but conserve heat, all of that kind of stuff. And they need to be replaced, just like we need to replace our clothes.
Okay.
And birds do this annually. They sometimes do it in different ways. The birds we'll talk about today will molt before they migrate. Some birds will start a molt and finish a molt after they've migrated, things like that. So it depends, and they molt in different ways. Young birds will retain their flight feathers and tails and just molt their body. Adults will molt everything.
Oh my goodness.
So that's why this time of year, if you look up and you see a crow fly by and they're missing feathers on both sides of their wing, they're actively molting those feathers and replacing those flight feathers.
Okay, so I can see where then this starts to make identification very challenging because the normal cues that you'd be able to look for, color and patterns, might be a little bit disturbed from what we're used to seeing the birds look like at other times of year.
They can change rather dramatically, and confusing fall warblers are fun for a lot of birders.
Confusing fall warblers, I like that. That's the theme of the show today.
That is, one of the things when you go out in the field this time of year, you're looking for those clues which you wouldn't normally see in the springtime.
Okay, well let's get started. Let's look at a couple of birds, and I think we've done some side-by-side images so that we can see what the difference between them are. Let's take a look at that first set.
So this is our chestnut-sided warbler, and you can see in the spring when, especially the males, when they come back, nice chestnut-sided, they're brightly colored. They will do a molt in this.
Is this a male bird then, by the way?
This is a male in the spring.
Okay, so and I see the chestnut side, that sort of brownish coloration.
Right, and this is the pleased to meet you. They like early successional young forest habitat, but this is what the bird looks like in the fall. So as as this bird molts out of its spring plumage, it molts into this what we call basic plumage fall color, and you can see it's vastly different than what the adult looks like or what the adult male looks like in the spring. But there are certain clues, those wing bars that are there, that greenish top, the greenish back. Will, for folks that are looking for it in birding, will help you identify it as a chestnut-sided warbler. Okay,
and now we have another one. Let's take a look at our next set.
So here we go, a black burning warbler, like a flame in the springtime.
Yeah, so
pretty. They're gorgeous birds. They tend to be up in the upper, higher treetop areas when you see them. We have them at the Audubon Center. All over the place. But in the fall, and especially with females and young birds, which are duller to begin with, this is a nice male, they will lose a lot of their really bright plumage, but they'll continue to hold. You can see the eye stripe is still there. You can see the two wing bars and that little triangle in the face.
So it's almost like you anchor onto something, like those two wing bars, for example.
Correct. So that separates a lot of fall warblers from other fall warblers. So wing bars are always a good starting place when you're trying to identify a bird.
Okay, wing bars. Good. All right. This is good. Okay, I'm glad you're giving me some things to latch onto.
Yes, it does take some practice.
Yeah.
Because often these birds will be moving together in a flock.
Right.
And so you'll have lots of movement and lots of different birds, and it's fun.
No one ever talks about birding as being such a physical sport practically. I mean, you really have to work in order to make all these identifications.
Very much so. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there now that are looking at shorebirds, which we talked about last time, which, you set up your scope, you put it out on a mud flat, and but when you're looking at these fall warblers, they're moving through the you know, the bush and up in the trees. So you're moving with them as you're trying to follow them.
Okay, well that's exciting because we need the exercise in the fall anyways. And it's so much nicer outside when the air starts to chill and
very much so.
Okay, so let's take a look at another set.
Okay, so the blackpoll warbler. Okay, this is a bird of high elevations. Okay. We find it up, you know, top of Mansfield, Camel's Hump, things like that. The male in the spring looks very distinct with that black and white plumage. And then come fall, after he's finished breeding, and many birds will do that. They put their energy into raising young, and then once the breeding period overs, they'll start their molt, and they'll put their energies into molting. But you can see how these two birds...
they almost don't look like the same bird to me. These look dramatically different.
These are dramatically different.
And they're both male.
And yes, well, I'm not exactly sure about the second one. Again, sometimes the females and the youngsters, but the males will look like this second bird.
Okay.
With that, and again, you're looking at those wing bars. You're looking at leg colors. You can see there's a little streaking still on the breast there.
Okay.
It doesn't have that facial pattern like the last, like the Blackburnian.
The facial pattern would be the thing that in the spring I think would be the distinctive element that I would look for.
Right.
And then I've lost it in the fall, but I'm going to go for the banding. You know, truthfully, the fall bird looks like there's even a color change.
Yeah, so they've gotten that green and yellowish thing, and you got to remember in the fall they're not singing either. So in the spring, that blackpoll warbler,
so in the fall,
first
they've just decided to make it as difficult as possible.
That's right, yes. So in the fall, you've got all these song clues that are coming in as well as seeing the bird. In the spring, you're dealing with chip calls and a much different looking bird to try to identify.
I have two questions. First of all, what is a chip call?
Chip.
Oh, chip. Oh,
yeah,
literally. So
literally
like
chip call.
Okay,
yeah. And they vary subtly between species.
Okay.
Some people are really good at chip calls.
Okay.
I'm kind of marginal, but you can use chip calls along with plumage colorations to identify a bird.
Okay, see, it's because I have birding aspirations that I need to ask all of these questions to make sure I understand. My other question was, why is there less bird song in the fall?
Well, because in the springtime, they're coming back from their wintering grounds, and they're trying to define their territories, and they're trying to attract a mate. So song is a key important feature to that. Once breeding's done, they don't have to sing anymore. In fact, we had somebody from Belize come up this past spring who bands a lot of catbirds, but she had never heard one sing. Because down in Belize, they just do their little meow call, and but they're not singing down there. So that's something that here in the north we get to experience.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, it very much is.
All right, let's take a look at a couple more.
Okay.
Let's see what we've got next.
So this is the Blackburnian warbler.
Okay.
Bay-breasted warbler.
Okay.
Get my things mixed up. And you can see the male is very distinct. With that bay breast on it and stuff. Pretty. This is a bird of the coniferous forest up north.
Okay,
but
and then we have, let's take a look at the next image.
The next
one's fall.
That's what it looks like in the fall.
That's incredible. That's so different.
It's very different. And it's so different between bay-breasted and blackpolls when we're banding them. Sometimes the one clue is the color of the bottom of their feet.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
so a blackpoll warbler will have yellow on the bottom of their feet, where a bay-breasted warbler won't.
Okay, all right, let's look at a couple more. Hopefully these are not going to be quite so challenging.
Okay, here's one of my favorites, the magnolia warbler, or the Maggie.
Okay.
And you can see in the spring that really nice necklace that it has. Magnolias also have their a wing bar across the central part of their tail as opposed to at the end. So that's a really good clue. If you see that flash of white when they spread their tail and it's halfway up the tail, good chance it's a magnolia warbler.
Amazing.
And you can see it's still maintaining some of the streaking on the body, but it's lost a lot of that facial pattern and but again, that tail pattern, is key. You see that little flash and you've got that, then you know you've got a magnolia warbler.
Okay, well, believe it or not, we only have a few more minutes left. So let's take a look at another one. See what we got.
So this is our Nashville warbler. Not too different, but you can see this one.
That looks hard. Those
we're
look very
looking
similar.
at the
Actually,
eye.
they're actually similar, so this is going to be good for me.
So no wing bars here.
No wing bars,
right? And you can see the eye ring stays in the fall. So in the spring, the male has a little brown on top.
Okay.
And in the fall, it has, and then if you notice in the fall picture, it is yellow, white, yellow on its breast through its tail feathers.
That's amazing. Okay.
So that's another indicator.
Let's see if we can get one more in, and then I think that's gonna be almost it for us today. Let's see what we got.
So another really bright one that changes its color, but again, still holding on to some. This is our prairie warbler, which we find in the southern part of the Champlain Valley and Connecticut River Valley. And a smaller bird, you can see it changes, but it still kind of holds on some of the clues, that yellow eye stripe, the little check there on its shoulder, and then again the streaking underneath and the white undertail coverts. All are clues that we use to identify these fall warblers.
I think one of my takeaways is going to be that the Nashville warbler and the prairie warbler, the two sets that seem to stay the least, those are the ones I'm going to try to identify this fall. I think I have my highest likelihood of success with those. The others are going to be a little more challenging.
And then one bird that doesn't change is our black-throated blue warbler. So that's a bird that, this is the male. We
just have about just a tiny bit of time here. Go ahead.
So this is the male. You can see that white check on the wing. Okay, this will stay the same color, but the female and young birds will be vastly different.
Okay.
But you see they still have that white check on the wing. So.
Okay, good. All right, so the white check. Good. All right, so I have some things to hold on to. We all have a challenge ahead of us for our fall bird identification. Mark loves getting your bird-related questions, so send him a stumper. His contact info is right there on the screen. And don't forget, if you have a question about a bird you've seen, send Mark a picture. Otherwise, I mean, the sighting didn't happen if you don't get a picture. So thank you, Vermont, for learning and exploring with me today. And thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.